Greece is being rebranded fast. No longer the weak link of Europe, but an energy hub, a security anchor, a strategic gateway between continents. But rebranding doesn't change geography or risk. Here's the question that's quietly avoided. Is Greece gaining real leverage, or is it being locked into a role that it won't be able to escape? Because when major powers compete, importance is never neutral. It comes with expectations, commitments, and eventually pressure. A decade ago, Greece sold assets under pressure to stay solvent. Today, those same assets sit at the intersection of U.S. China rivalry, energy corridors, and Eastern Mediterranean tensions, ports, gas routes, shipping fleets, military access. This isn't about personalities or diplomacy. It's about exposure and what happens when a country becomes too useful to too many powers at once. During the financial crisis, Greece wasn't executing a long-term strategy. It was surviving day to day. That's how the port of Piraeus passed into the hands of COSCO, a Chinese state-owned shipping conglomerate. At the time, it was treated as a financial rescue, but ports are not normal assets. They determine who controls the entry and exit points of entire regions. For China, Piraeus became a logistics foothold inside the European Union, the western edge of the Belt and Road network. For Greece, it brought investment and activity, but also the realization that infrastructure ownership shapes foreign policy options decades into the future. And for Washington, it triggered a reassessment. If a strategic NATO area port could shift into a rival's orbit once, it could happen again. From that moment onward, Greek infrastructure stopped being viewed simply as economic property, and it became geopolitical terrain. What truly transformed Greece's relevance wasn't a speech or a summit. It was energy geography. Over the last 15 to 20 years, major gas discoveries appeared across the Eastern Mediterranean, offshore Egypt, Israel, Cyprus, and Greece. The region suddenly has more gas than local markets can absorb. So this created a simple question: where does that gas go? Historically, energy flows towards the nearest large market, in this case, Europe. But routes matter, because whoever controls the routes controls leverage. Now, there were three theoretical options: north through Turkey, south via Egypt's LNG terminals, or west through a new Mediterranean corridor anchored on Cyprus and Greece. The third option is where Athens entered the strategic picture. Instead of a single pipeline solution, a hybrid system began emerging. Gas fields in the Levant would equal to liquefaction or transport, which would then land in Greece and would be redistributed north into the Balkans and Eastern Europe and on westwards into the rest of the continent. This is why liquid natural gas matters. Liquefied gas travels by ship, not fixed pipelines, which allows suppliers and buyers to change partners. Flexibility equals bargaining power. Greece's Revithoussa LNG terminal already played the role in this system. But the real turning point is the Alexandroupolis floating LNG terminal, positioned near the northern Aegean. That location is critical. Gas landing there doesn't stay in Greece. It moves north into Bulgaria, Romania, and beyond, feeding what planners call the vertical corridor, a northbound train reducing dependence on Russian supply routes. So Greece isn't just consuming energy, it's becoming a valve, and whoever controls a valve influences everyone connected downstream. This is where regional politics and infrastructure converge. Israel will export gas to the west because exporting east would trap it in narrow regional markets. Cyprus, though smaller, occupies a key maritime position between these fields and Europe. Cyprus has also discovered large quantities of oil and gas supplies. Now Greece provides the bridge into the European grid. Together, the three form a corridor, not always a single pipe, but an interconnected system. LNG shipping, pipelines, and electricity interconnectors. The proposed East Med pipeline symbolizes this idea. It shows intent, it bypasses choke points, and it diversifies routes. Then come electricity projects, like the East Asia Interconnector, or more widely known as the Great Sea Interconnector. This is a subsea cable linking Israel, Cyprus, and Greece into the European power network. Now, electricity cables sound technical, but geopolitically they matter because they bind systems permanently. Energy grids are harder to sever than trade agreements. The logic is straightforward. Reduce reliance on Russian-controlled supply routes and bypass future Turkish transit dominance. Not to isolate Turkey, but to avoid single-point leverage. Because energy dependence has repeatedly translated into political pressure across Europe's modern history, as we are witnessing at the moment also. Beyond regional energy routes lies a broader economic framework. In 2023, the United States, the European Union, India, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Israel announced the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor. Its purpose is to create a parallel trade route linking Asia to Europe that avoids relying on a single maritime choke point or transit power. Today, most goods moving from India to Europe sail through the Indian Ocean, past the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, transit the Red Sea, across the Suez Canal, and only then reach the Mediterranean. IMEC proposes a hybrid alternative. Cargo would travel by sea from India to ports in the UAE and Saudi Arabia. From there, it would cross the Arabian Peninsula by rail to Israel's Mediterranean coast. Ships would then carry it onward to European entry points, with Greece positioned as a principal gateway into the European market. Alongside goods, the corridor is also intended to host electricity connections, hydrogen transport, and digital data cables. The objective is not merely speed, but redundancy. Multiple routes mean no single disruption or political dispute can halt Eurasian trade. In that sense, Eastern Mediterranean energy projects are not isolated initiatives. They represent the western end of a supply chain stretching from India to Europe. Now, energy systems don't function without transport. And here, Greece possesses a structural advantage that few countries have: its merchant fleet. Greek-owned tankers carry a large share of global LNG and oil shipments. This means Greek companies are not just national actors. They are global logistics decision makers. When LNG flows increase from the Eastern Mediterranean or the US, Greek ships often move it. When Europe shifts suppliers, Greek shipping adjusts routes. So Greece's role in energy isn't limited to geography, it extends into mobility. That combination, location plus fleet, makes the country disproportionately relevant in a world reorganizing supply chains after disruptions in Ukraine and the Red Sea. Now, infrastructure reshapes military logic. As energy and logistics routes shift, security planning always follows. Facilities in Suda Bay, Alexandroupolis, and other Greek sites have expanded their operational relevance not just symbolically but practically, as transit and support points linking Europe, the Balkans, and the Eastern Mediterranean. This doesn't mean that Greece becomes a frontline state by choice, but increased logistical value inevitably increases strategic attention. In geopolitics, traffic attracts presence. Presence attracts planning, and planning attracts contingency scenarios. That's the price of centrality. Diplomacy often works through quiet continuity. Occasionally, it works through signaling. Now, the recent appointment of Kimberly Guilfoyle as U.S. ambassador to Greece fits into the second category. Not because one ambassador creates strategies pre-exist, but because political figures can accelerate decisions. They reassure investors, they communicate priorities quickly, and they signal backing without formal treaty changes. Kimberly Guilfoyle's role aligns with several ongoing objectives: anchoring Greece firmly into Western energy redistribution networks, discouraging further strategic infrastructure drift toward China, deepening defense integration tied to logistics routes, and communicating commitment to Athens while maintaining working channels with Turkey. In short, less architecture, more catalyst. The policies were underway, the timeline is now shortened. Now, between the island of Crete and Cyprus lies the practical test of these ambitions: subsea infrastructure, pipelines and cables and electricity grids that once built, they will require protection, political, diplomatic, and military. The challenge is not engineering, it is commitment. Support in theory differs from support under pressure. Greece has clearly gained importance, but leverage is not measured by how central you become. It's measured by how freely you can choose when competing interests collide. If multiple powers rely on your stability, you gain influence. If multiple powers rely on your compliance, you lose autonomy. The coming decade will reveal which applies. The real test won't be announcements or exercises, it will be the first crisis, where infrastructure, alliances, and geography intersect. That's when we're going to see whether Greece stands as a pillar or as a pressure point. If you want analysis that goes beyond headlines into how systems actually work, subscribe to the channel and don't forget to press the notification bell. And tell me in the comments, does this trajectory make Greece safer or simply more exposed? Because in politics, importance is never free.